All right, hello and welcome to today's webinar, Becoming a Better Wine Taster, sponsored by Oregon State's Professional and Continuing Ed Unit. I am Melanie Mitchell. I serve as the Director of Professional and Continuing Ed, PACE, we call ourselves. And I'm joined today by Elizabeth Tomasino. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. She's also serving as our panelist and a partner for this offering. And I'll describe her background in just a minute, but together we basically are engaging in community continuing ed opportunities and partnerships and provide personal enrichment and professional development opportunities through Oregon State. At PACE, Professional and Continuing Education, we offer hundreds of courses and certificate programs that are open to the public. And let's see, here we go. Open to the public, and we offer a value of continuing education that address not only educational, professional, but also economic development goals for you personally. So partnerships, and the one that we're talking about today with Dr. Tomasino, provides amazing opportunities for professional and continuing education, and we are able to help foster careers and foster personal development and benefit communities of all shapes and sizes. We're committed to bringing the best of Oregon State University to people of all ages and industries, and we're proud to partner with the College of Agricultural Sciences to do just that. So one slide I flipped over today was kind of our introduction. So I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Tomasino's background. We're going to go over becoming a better wine taster. We're going to talk about her upcoming course, Sensory Evaluation of Wine, the program benefits of that course. We're going to talk about, we're going to weave in kind of question answers about the presentation and the upcoming course and provide you our contact information as we go forward so that you can get in touch with us and get your questions answered as you have further questions going forward. So let me, without further ado, introduce you to Elizabeth. She's assistant professor here at Oregon State University. She's had the opportunity to study the wine industry worldwide, including Europe and New Zealand, and her research interests lie in wine sensory analysis and flavor chemistry. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being here with us today. We're proud to partner with you on this offering and future offerings in this field. So let's go ahead and make sure that you can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, so can you talk to us a little bit about becoming a better wine taster?
So this course that's being offered, Becoming a Better Wine Taster, came about due to a lot of the work I do. So I have more than 10 years in wine sensory, and I get asked by a lot of people, oh, what can I do to become a better wine taster? They enjoy wine, but when we sit down and taste and they ask me questions, it's quite clear that a lot of people are interested in learning more. And then, but not just learning more, but also trying to work towards understanding what smells, how winemaking occurs. And interestingly enough, I also get a lot of this from the wine industry as well. So there are lots of different people in the wine industry, and learning how to taste wine is something very important when you make wine. But you have to go about it in a specific manner to become the best taster you can, and not sort of take many, many years. It's possible to become a better wine taster quite quickly, actually, which most people don't completely understand. So when people think about wine tasting, a lot of times it can be a little intimidating. You have this professional-looking person who is studiously sipping a glass of wine, and then they start talking about all these things they smell and they taste. And I know, at least when I started, you sat there and it's like, I have no idea what this person is talking about. I certainly don't smell that. And the big difference between consumers and people starting out is they haven't had the practice and the experience that a lot of professionals do. Because a lot of people think you have to be very special to be able to taste wine. And every single person has this ability. You just have to be trained properly. And that's really what we're looking for in this course, to start people on how we get trained to be able to describe wines, how they smell, to be able to taste things, to be able to determine if a wine is good or not, what that means from the wine industry's point of view for it. Something we also go into, which is a specialty of me, is why people sort of describe wine in different ways. So this cartoon is actually a favorite of mine. We have a gentleman and a woman, and they're both smelling the same wine. But if you can see, they're describing it in really very different ways. So the gentleman is saying there's cherries and walnut smells, and the woman is kind of like old socks and printing ink, and yet they're smelling the exact same glass of wine. And this happens much more frequently than people think. And what a lot of consumers don't understand is the fact that this is normal. How we smell and how our sense of smell works and how our sense of taste works is very complicated. And that's something that we go through in the start of this course, is why people smell things differently, why you might be more sensitive to fruit aromas than I, why I might taste things that are bitter and you don't. There are lots of reasons for this, and one person is not wrong compared to another person. It's just that there are a lot of differences that occur. And in understanding where some of these differences occur, we can figure out what's happening, why people are smelling these things. And a lot of times in the wine industry, it's about getting people on the same page. So we smell a glass of wine, we recognize the smell, and we call it the same word, which sometimes doesn't happen in the wine industry. So again, these two individuals are smelling the same wine, but they're calling these smells different things. And something that I figure out in my work, and we talk to the wine industry about, is, are they really smelling different things, or is it that they're calling the smell two different names, which occurs a lot. And in this course, and what we do with the wine industry, is we get people on track with calling things the same. So for training wise, we really look at three big things. We look at aroma, flavor, and mouthfeel. And this drawing is sort of a crosshatch of your sensory system that we deal with in wine sensory. So we have aroma, which is literally you just smell wine. And the path that this aroma takes is you sniff up through your nose, and it goes to the back of your nose where it binds with what is called the olfactory bulb. And then our brain takes that information and calls it strawberry, perchance. You're smelling a strawberry. Your brain says, oh, that's strawberry. So that's aroma specifically. And that's different from flavor and mouthfeel. So flavor actually is a combination of aroma and taste. But in this case, the aroma comes from a different path. So when we talk about flavor, we talk about once you've put that wine into your mouth. So if you can see in our picture, there's a big purple arrow on the back of the tongue that says retronasal olfaction. This is a second path that aroma can take to your brain. So what happens is you taste your wine and the aroma compounds travel through the back of your throat. So anyone who's ever had a cold, this is where you feel your postnasal drip. There's actually space in the back of your throat that links up to your nasal cavities. So for flavor, our aroma compounds take a different path to the olfactory bulb and get interpreted by the brain. And then flavor is a combination of that and taste. So I think most people are very familiar with taste. There are 5 tastes of sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. And what occurs is things in wine will bind with your taste buds on your tongue, and then that information goes to your brain. And we get things called flavor. So it's sour. It tastes like lemon. What else? It's sweet. Those are all things that are incorporated into flavor. And the last aspect that we focus on in this course is mouthfeel. And mouthfeel is very confusing for a lot of people. It's also very confusing for industry. Mouthfeel works through 2 different mechanisms. So there's one that is called your trigeminal nerve. And it's a nerve system response. And the best example I give to people is, think about, should you bite into a hot pepper, like a jalapeno, and all of a sudden your mouth is on fire. What happens is capsaicin in the pepper has binded with things in your mouth and turn that trigeminal nerve on, and all of a sudden you feel heat. It's the same mechanism for when you're crunching on an ice cube and you feel cold in your mouth, or if there's tingling. It's this nerve reaction. So it's not aroma and it's not taste. It's its own thing. And then the other reason that mouthfeel is complicated is because we have trigeminal nerve, But then you have what in wine we talk about as texture. And texture has to do with things in wine binding with things in your saliva. And one of the best examples I can give is think about feeling sandpaper with your hand. So you can feel the graininess of sandpaper. Something that can occur when you taste wine is you put it in your mouth, things in the wine bind with your saliva, and then when you run your tongue along your cheek, you feel a sensation very much like feeling sandpaper, but it's in your mouth. And that is one type of mouthfeel that occurs. And there's lots and lots of types of mouthfeel. And something that we're quite proud of at OSU here is we have developed quite a bit of training specifically on being able to identify different types of mouthfeel, because that's very challenging to do. Excuse me. So one of the things, yep.
Sorry, we already had a question come in. So someone's wondering, can you taste better, or can wine taste better if it's described in a certain way? So can you be more of an influencer if you're helping to describe the wine and describe somebody while they're tasting, during a tasting, and almost influence the way that they're thinking about the wine?
So sometimes you can. I think of it, I'll use an example of I once was tasting wine with my father, and he's sitting there and he was like, it's okay. You know, it's an interesting wine, it's okay, but there's something to it. And I just went, oh, well, it smells like strawberries. And he was like, that's right. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I really like strawberry. And he's like, so I must really like this wine. And I just started to laugh because about a minute ago, he was sort of on the fence if he liked that wine or not. So it really depends on if the language that is being used connects with the person tasting the wine. Hopefully that answered that question.
Thank you. They said thank you.
Oh, great. Something else beyond training, and I'm going to go into what we train, but something that's really important that we start out with is we do go over the winemaking process. So while there are lots of different ways to make wine, you need to have a general understanding of the winemaking process, because that's how it's going to influence how wine tastes, what the aroma is. So this diagram up here is a very, very general schematic of how red wine is made. And we go through and talk a little bit about winemaking because how the wine is made will affect the taste, such as the sourness or the sweetness. There are certain styles of wine that use different winemaking processes that affect how it smells. So at the very start of the class, we actually do go through and talk about how white wine is made and how red wine is made, just to have an understanding of where it's coming from and what could be influencing the aromas, taste, and mouthfeel.
Elizabeth, would you mind repeating that last one?
Once we get starting through that, ooh, is there a question?
Elizabeth, can you hear us okay? Testing, testing. Would you remind, testing, Elizabeth, can you hear us okay?
There we go, I just got you. It just cut out for a second. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Hi, I'm so sorry. We lost you there for a minute. Could you just restate that phrase about the winemaking process?
So it's important to understand the winemaking process, because that will really dictate a lot of the aromas and flavors and mouthfeel of the wine. So we do go over generally how white wine and red wine is made. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, it's cutting out just a little bit. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really weird.
There you are.
Hang on.
Sometimes you're so loud and then it just cuts out just a tad bit.
It might be my phone.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, we'll try it now.
Okay.
I'm on a landline, so it's weird that it's cutting out.
You know, we were having some problems with electricity on the campus today, so maybe that has part of it.
Maybe that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, we hear you now. Okay. Thank you.
Great. So I'll just recap slightly what I said. We do go through the basics of red winemaking and white winemaking, because the winemaking process does influence how wine smells and tastes and the mouthfeel. So having at least a basic understanding of how it's made is really important.
when you're tasting wine, because we'll talk about certain terms. And I always have questions of, well, how do you get, if we're looking for this, how do you get more of that? And it's like, oh, that has to do with how the wine is made. So we do go through, and the first actual section of the course is just doing a very basic, this is how white wine is made, and this is how red wine is made, and which steps are really important for how the wine smells and tastes, which is a nice way to start things off. Excuse me. One thing that we do cover throughout the 2-day course, which is very important, is you're going to taste a lot of specific wine styles. So part of wine tasting and evaluating wine from both industry and a consumer point of view has to do with, is it true to the style of that wine? So if you purchase a wine, and for instance, a Chardonnay is typically considered a dry white wine, and all of a sudden you have your Chardonnay, and wow, that tastes really sweet. From a quality point of view, because that wine is not true to style, it's actually considered a problem. So almost all of the wines that have been chosen for this course represent very specific styles. So people will have an understanding of what those styles are, and they'll have a chance to taste a lot of those different styles for wine. So all the wine was chosen very specifically to also broaden people's experience to different wines. We, of course, have a few Oregon wines, but I've chosen wines from all around the world for us to taste that do depict a lot of these wine styles in particular. And then what's a lot of fun is we go through some heavy-duty training. So training yourself how to recognize and describe aroma and taste and mouthfeel can take a long time, but we get you started on that journey. And literally we do that by, you kind of have to deconstruct what you're smelling. So we prepare a lot of aroma standards, and we train you on different aromas. So what exactly we mean by tropical fruit? What exactly is a raspberry aroma? What is spice? What is earth? And then once you go through and smell all of these, we've chosen wines specifically that have these specific aroma notes. So what you just practiced, you're able to detect in actual wine styles. And this is literally how people and experts go through and are able to smell a wine and list off 10 or 15 different aromas because they've had this training. They've smelled the standard, they know the word associated with that standard, and they've made that connection in their brain. So now when they smell that smell, they know exactly what to call it in wine. So we go through aroma standards in white wine and in red wine. We also go through training for taste and mouthfeel. And this is something we're particularly proud at because we've worked for a number of years. Training in taste is quite common. You can do it at home. We take it a little further, and we talk about balance and what balance is and what an unbalanced wine is and what that means from a taste point of view. But we also provide a range of mouthfeel training, which is something that is not widely available. So what you have on screen is a mouthfeel wheel, which was developed in Australia. And you can see there are lots of different mouthfeel and texture things up there. But what is kind of lacking in the world are actually ways to train. So what does creamy mean? What does thin mean? What does sour mean? What does lift mean? And we've developed a number of standards that we can actually train you on. If you see that word, this is actually what this mouthfeel means. And we've spent a number of years working on this, and we're quite excited to be able to bring this to tasters, because this is how you get better. You train on it, and you're able to recognize. So we're very excited that we have this ability to train people on mouthfeel. And the last thing, which is very important for industry as well as consumers, is we take people through recognizing wine faults. So from an industry point of view, you need to know what a wine fault smells like. So when it happens, you can take care of it, because there's lots of things you can do to avoid wine faults and to fix wine faults. From a consumer point of view, it's about wine quality. Is this a good wine? While there is no one definition for what wine quality is, one of the things that almost everyone agrees with is, if your wine has faults, that's a problem. So you want to be able to recognize these because that's the wine you'd want to avoid in the future if it has a fault to it. Typically, a wine fault is something that is considered a bad smell. So I've put an example up. This is one wine fault that people might be familiar with. It's called cork taint, and it occurs if you have a cork, and there's bacteria in the cork, and if there is something in the air or a precursor in the wine, and it comes in contact with the bacteria in the cork, it will produce this compound called TCA, or 2,4,6-trichloroanisole. And the problem with TCA in wine is it smells like wet cardboard, musty, wet dog. It's not something you want in your wine. So were you enjoying some wine when you're out with friends and you get a new bottle and all of a sudden you detect, wow, this smells and tastes kind of like wet cardboard? There's a problem with that wine. You don't want to drink that wine. You actually want to send that back. So we do take everyone through a range of the very common recognized wine faults, which is very important for people to know for that. But yeah, the course is really about training yourself to be able to describe wine. And when you're able to describe wine, it sort of changes how you go about tasting. I like to use the example of I'm on vacation, I'm enjoying this great wine, and I can describe it. I know it's got spice, it's got blackberries, it has a nice, smooth, velvety mouthfeel. So therefore, when I go to the store or I'm looking to try other wines, if I see spice, if I see blackberry, if I see velvety or smooth on the description, I'm probably going to want to try that wine because I'm probably really going to enjoy that wine. So that's how I like to look at learning to train yourself, is you can really describe things, and that opens up your experience to trying a whole range of wines, as well as being able to really start to understand wine quality and what that means. And that is the whole goal of the 2-day course.
We are excited for this offering. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise. I love the culprit, the cork. I have a couple other that just came in. How would this course differ from an intense sommelier course? Would you compare the difference?
We do some things different than sommelier courses do. I come from a science background. So while sommeliers typically link to what is supposed to be typical for maybe a wine style or a specific region, we do really link things back to production specifically and where it comes from. So a lot of times when we do some of those aroma descriptors and we give people things to train with, we also do things using aroma compounds specifically. And I will link back exactly where those aroma compounds come from, if it's from the grape, if it's from winemaking, which is not something that is typically done in sommelier courses.
Excellent. Well, keep asking your questions. We want to make sure they get answered. We're going to talk a little bit more about the course format. So the sensory evaluation of wine is coming soon. It's going to run June 3rd and 4th on site here at the Oregon State campus here in Corvallis. The cost of the course is $450, and you do get continuing education units. We are offering a special discount for those that attended today, so thank you for being here. We will send this recording as well as the discount code to use to register. So thank you again. Let's talk a little bit about the format, though. So who should attend? We, is talking with Elizabeth about the upcoming program. Wine enthusiasts, those that manage tasting rooms, restaurant owners or catering managers, or really anybody that wants to enrich their ability or their opportunities of tasting and evaluating wine. Elizabeth, do you want to add anything here too about those that would benefit from this program in industry?
It is really designed to hit, I know it's a broad area of people, but if you're looking for people who are new in industry and need to kind of get up on their tasting pretty quickly, it's excellent for that. It is designed for people who don't have industry background as well. That's why we go through winemaking and what occurs for it. But we've had cellar workers attend before, tasting room managers, general public who just want to learn more about wine. So it is a course crafted for anyone who is really interested.
Right. So what you're going to learn, these are basically our course objectives of the course, and what's used, taught throughout the 2-day session will be discussed and mapped back to these course objectives. But you're looking at the essential aspects of evaluation, sensory evaluation, that are often overlooked in most wine tastings, the red and white winemaking process. She did a great job going over taste and mouth feel of wine, the aroma, and then why it spoils. So today's presentation was wonderful. So thank you so much.
And I would like to add, we do go into how your sense of smell, taste, and mouthfeel work, which is to quite a degree, which is something that typically is not done to that extent.
Yes, thank you. So can you talk a little bit more about this program? And one question that just came in was, which wines will be sampled? So I'm so glad this slide was here. And why did you actually pick those wines specifically? Do you want to talk a little bit about the course and what, the mechanics of the 2 days?
So the mechanics of the 2 days is you have a brief sort of lecture or overview on a topic, and then we go into either training and then wine tasting. So it's sort of broken down into, we're going to talk about red and white winemaking, then we'll taste some good examples of different styles of white and red wine. Then perhaps we'll go into aroma. So we'll talk about how your sense of smell works and what goes on and where aroma comes from in the winemaking process. And then we'll spend some time training you on aroma standards. And then we'll be tasting wines that have those specific characteristics that we just were trained on. The wines are chosen because they match up well with the training standards we give you. They're very good examples of specific styles of wine. And they're also chosen from around the world, so you're able to start to experience styles of wine, varieties of wine that you might not be able to here. So while we do sprinkle in some Oregon wines, the wines do come from countries around the world.
Thank you. All right. So we're really seeing that this programs at pace, and especially this course, is going to you some immediate returns. You'll be able to apply this knowledge that you're learning in these 2 days right into your field. You're having an opportunity to diversify or extend your skill set, and it's a fun, personal way to expand your skill set and potentially expand into different career sets. I mean, maybe this is something that you're looking to get into. Like she said, you can be a novice wine taster and be able to up your skills and then expand into a new industry. And so we're so excited to have the rich blend of art and science that you have offered to this audience is really exciting. So thank you, Elizabeth.
And we have one other thing that people might find interesting, particularly from those in industry, is we do a lot of training in black glasses, which take the sight aspect out, so you're really training your nose, which is something that's quite unique and a bit of a challenge as well.
Great. So you cut out just a tad bit, but you said in black glasses, and the reason is why?
So if you're looking at something and you can see it and your brain goes, oh, that's an orange, so I should be smelling orange, you're not actually training your nose. You just train based it off sight. So in black glasses, you take sight away. So in this case, it's like you're smelling something. We're training your brain to be that smell is orange, not that picture is orange, which is a very different thing when it comes into how your sensory system works.
Excellent. Woo! That's so wonderful. Well, registration's open now. We do have a few seats left, so please register. We'll accept registrations up until the week of the class. And again, we'll be sending you all a coupon code for 10% off the course for joining us today, so we thank you. I don't see any other questions at this time. So thank you, Dr. Tomasino, for being with us today. We have our contact information below. Also, Elizabeth's contact information is there, so please reach out to us with questions. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable with coming to this class and feel prepared and really know the expectations of what you'll learn when completing the 2-day course. So thank you, Elizabeth, so much for sharing your time. I'm looking forward to implementing this course and strengthening the wine sensory abilities of Beaver Nation. So thank you so much for being here.